Jay, just your overall view of Infowars receiver greenlit by the state court last night to shut us down. They gave us 5-day notice. They can be in here as early as 5 days from now to shut us down. What's going to happen when that happens? I mean, this is quite a thing.
I think it will vindicate a lot of the things that you've been talking about. I mean, you don't shut down stuff unless you need to shut them down because they're saying true things. So that kind of persecution, that kind of demonetization, I had the same thing happen with me. I had my whole website deleted the very hour that Alex was taken down from everything back in 2018. So I know exactly what it is to experience that. That was my main means of income at the time. I got demonetized on YouTube at the same time as well over the T word, the trans word. So I know what that's like. And it's, people act like, if you're persecuted or something like that, like, well, who's the most persecuted? Well, everybody who's tried to talk about these topics for the most part has been persecuted. So you have to survive as best you can. But I think it's a testament to the success actually of Alex that they had to resort to this. And it was such kind of a silly subject matter to hyper focus on, which shows you, I think, that they'll just find anything they can to try to take somebody or take something down. So I think that Alex is going to come out of this probably 2 times more popular. It'll be everywhere. People will know that it was shut down eventually. Alex wasn't exaggerating for the last couple of years of the legal issues, that it was real. And, again, everybody will come out of this listening to Alex more. It will just put a seal of approval on the whole message that he's had for all these years. I remember hearing Alex for the first time back in 2003. I saw a clip of him on some random website talking about Skull and Bones and talking about the CIA, and I never heard of this connection between Yale and Skull and Bones, and what does this matter? Well, it turns out a lot of the people, again, that are getting into these kinds of higher level graduate studies as part of the bureaucracy class or part of the governmental class, they're studying all this stuff that Alex was talking about 20, 25, 30 years ago. So I came at Alex's information with a degree of skepticism. I knew about the New World Order, but here he is back then talking about the elite intelligence agencies, Skull and Bones. And then that led me to, all of his 9/11 research, the work he did with Burmis. Shout out to Jason Burmis, great guy as well. And then Richard Grove and all that information. And it's all there. It's just people don't really, I think, want to take the time to read books. We're in an era where I think a very small portion of the population actually reads anything. People just rely on the reels. And I think the reels and the TikTok stuff was rolled out on purpose to destroy everybody's attention spans. And you're really just cheating yourself if you don't decide to read and be educated. But Alex always listed all these books, and I did the homework and went and read them, and he was spot on. Everything he said was, for the most part, 98% true. So it's going to be a huge victory, even though it sounds like a defeat. Most of the time, these things end up being victories. The system still operates in this sort of old boomer mindset where, if you just shut somebody down, they're done, and we can censor them and they'll go away. It doesn't really work that way. It's Streisand effect. It's going to make people look at the information 10 times more intently. Even if they don't read the books, they'll at least listen to people talking about the books. That's kind of what we do, is focus on doing your homework for you. So I'm just, in a way, I don't mean this in a shitty way or a rude way, but I think Alex will come out of this 10 times bigger. So it's a testament to Alex's success that they're going to shut down Infowars. Not that I want it to happen, but I've been listening since 2003. So 22 years of Alex Jones, but you're going to keep going on. You've got backup.
Absolutely. But it really comes down to the listeners, because it's not me. It's the guest. It's the crew. It's everything we've done. It's been everybody. You're the Infowar. The crew's the Infowar. The viewers are the Infowar. If they decide to, really carry the ball, this will backfire on the enemy, which is happening everywhere. Imagine the globalist nightmare now. They thought 10 years ago, wrote all these articles, we got to stop Jones or we'll go down. Now they got all these other people totally awake. They're bigger than I am. So it's not going too well for them. In fact, let's talk about that when we come back. All right. One of the top researchers on the New World Order globalist system, Jay Dyer, best-selling author, is with us for the rest of the hour at jaysanalysis.com. I didn't ask. Did you get scheduled on Harrison today?
I don't know.
I don't know. I knew when you were coming to town, I asked him, we should find it. 4 p.m. You're on. You good for that?
Okay.
All right. You've been drafted. You good for that?
All right. Let's do it.
We'll eat some lunch after this if you're hungry. So I asked you this an hour and 10 minutes ago or 6 minutes ago to start the interview. Just, the globalists are in trouble. All the top comedians, all the top podcasters are anti-globalists now. The whole world's electing populists. The education curve, the awakening curve is exponential. But we can't be too confident, because what are we promoting instead of the globalist model? And what do you make of the fact that they thought in the Financial Times of London, New York Times, 8, 9, 10 years ago, Jones is patient zero. If we don't stop him, this will overturn our globalist system, while they'd separately be on CNN saying globalism doesn't exist. Now, how do you think they feel with the fact that Elon Musk sounds just like me, or the list goes on and on? I mean, they've really failed so far.
Yeah, they can't stop the awakening. And like you said, comedian-wise, I mean, everybody that I can think of that's actually funny or well-known out there basically says what you say, right? I mean, Sam Hyde knows all this stuff. One of the best comedians out there. I write for the Sam Hyde Show, by the way. Go check it out. Theo Von, super funny dude. He knows all this stuff, talks about this stuff now. Tim Dillon.
Hell, Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, all the top comedians out there basically are on board. and that's a dangerous thing to have, is because they really influence culture, right? I mean, in a way that people overlook. All the talk show hosts, yeah, it's weird to see even, mainline people kind of saying this kind of stuff now. But that's a testament to...
Oh, I mean, even Cuomo tries to act like us now.
I know, right?
and Bill Maher.
Yep. They're forced to. I mean, because the audience isn't there if you don't move in the direction of what, the Overton window is shifting in this direction. So you've moved the Overton window.
We have together, but so what do they do now?
Well, now they have to engage in some kind of activity that is what these global elite books call shocks to the system. So
a new virus, a cyber attack.
Something like that. Yeah, they're definitely ramping up the racial stuff. I think they want a civil war. We've covered that movie, Civil War, the recent propaganda film. There was the Obama film about
Leave Me Forever.
Yeah, exactly. Those are about the collapse of America, and that's telling us propaganda-wise what they want to do. The movies are all made in consultation with the Pentagon and CIA too. So the propaganda comes out telling you, preparing you for what they want to do. So they want to break up the country, destroy the West in that way. And they also have to get the population of white Western European people down. They have to do that because those are the people in their studies that are going to stand against these kinds of collectivist ideas. It's,
they talk about it.
They talk about Scottish people. Myself, I'm Scottish, who have this sort of crazy self-will.
Yeah, talk about that. It pops up in their text so much about Scots. That's some weird British Empire thing, or what is it?
Partly, I mean, think about William Wallace. Think about the whole, Mel Gibson makes Braveheart, because this is a testament to the standing against the tyrannical king, the tyrannical power at a local level. And I'm pretty much 100% Scottish. I have some English in me as well, but I come from...
By the way, that was talked about, though, the history is like the Texas Revolution was basically Scottish, was the main group. But the point is it keeps popping up.
Yeah, Scotch-Irish, etc.
Mix in the Irish some too, yeah.
They have that gene, or they have this sort of drive that is very dangerous, I think, to the system. So that has to be targeted and destroyed. Even the corrupt British elites seem to understand that centuries ago.
And before that was the British that the Romans couldn't capture either. It was kind of the whole Gaelic, Celtic thing is a big problem.
Yeah, it is. And, that we have that genetic download in ourselves, from our ancestors. You talk about that quite a bit, right? Activating that programming from your genetic memories, your ancestors. I think that's all real. This book actually talks quite a bit about genetics and the power that we have in our bloodlines. The elite are all about studying bloodlines. Some of the books talk about it explicitly. I
woke up at like 3:30 in the morning and to take a piss, and my cell phone was again off in the bathroom, and this happened, and I walk in there and God says, pick up that phone. And I literally went and like looked into it and saw the exact minute, turned the phone on, and right as it turns on, it's the exact minute and flips the next minute. But it was like God it wasn't me, it was God. It was just, it happens all the time. It's like a little thing God shows me. I only do it when God tells me to. And it was literally, it's always the same. But I literally looked into the phone and digitally saw the number as I was turning it on.
Last time I was here in studio, you were talking about dreams that you were having, these sort of prophetic dreams.
Yeah.
You saw, crazy events happening. Everybody has this because we're not just physical beings. We have a spirit. We have that potentiality to experience those things at higher levels. And that book is actually talking about this. So in order to talk about answers and solutions, you said earlier, talk about what the solutions are.
Yeah, we can't just oppose their system. What do we do?
Well, I'm a huge proponent of Orthodox Christianity. Orthodox Christianity believes in the potentiality of man, not on his own, but through divine grace to actually achieve the types of things that this book is talking about in an occult way, but in a real way. So the real experience, the direct experience of God is what Orthodox Christianity is all about. And again, remember in Jacques Attali's book, Brief History of the Future, he says, H.G. Wells says, in Shape of Things to Come, there will be these reactions in these revolutionaries that they're calling us the counter-revolutionaries, I should say. They will have to be destroyed. In fact, one of the H.G. Wells quotes says that millions of people are going to die opposing the New World Order, but it's all necessary. So
who's the one that told the Senate there'll be a lot of gallant, wonderful people that seem well, they'll have to die for the New World Order to succeed?
I think, and then in Shape of Things to Come, like there's a nationalist leader that rises.
They had to come attack him.
Yeah. So
with planes that look like B-2 bombs.
Yeah, exactly. He predicted, years before World War II, Shape of Things to Come has all this World War II imagery in it.
And atomic bombs.
Mm-hmm. He wrote about that decades earlier. A lot of times fiction, that ties into this predictive thing. It can be prophetic. Dostoevsky wrote novels predicting millions of skulls that the communists would create to bring in their socialist revolution. He wrote that in Demons decades before Bolshevik Revolution, before Stalin, all that. So fiction is an example of being prophetic. It can be from a demonic influence, and it can also be from a divine influence. So Orthodox Christianity, I think, is the solution. We've helped tens of thousands of young dudes convert to Orthodoxy, out of Protestantism, out of Rome. I think that's what.
How did you start out religiously?
I was raised Baptist and not super serious, but
what got you into like Russian or Greek Orthodox or same thing?
Well, they're all kind of the same in terms of the faith. It's just the different nation groups and sections or jurisdictions of it. But it's the same confession. It's the same confession of Christianity the first 1,000 years. Even the Pope admitted, Pope Ratzinger admitted in one of his books that Orthodox Christianity is the Christianity of the first 1,000 years. And Rome is really the one that kind of deviated, got really political. But I mean, guys are getting into Orthodox churches and like actually getting healing and becoming dads, getting wives. And a lot of the political messaging out there, which is true, it's not actually helping dudes. And the only way we're going to have a future is if young guys.
Well, I do see Orthodox leaders. We had the Patriarch of Canada on a while back. I see them all over the world. They're talking about the New World Order, the globalists, point blank, like, No,
I mean, most of the Orthodox bishops and priests I know, we're about to have a conference in November, have a bishop coming in to talk about all this stuff. So, yeah. You want to come to the Palm Coast, Florida? We have a conference November 20th, 21st at my church. Down there, you can get tickets on my Twitter. We'll be talking about all of this, many clerics. I don't know. All the Orthodox clerics I know are well aware of the New World Order. And that's because many, for example, Russian Orthodox people were persecuted by the Bolsheviks, by the atheists. So they know what it is to go through that. There's a guy in Houston who is a Romanian Orthodox priest, Father Julian, and he was imprisoned by the communists, by Ceausescu and all them. So yeah, they know it firsthand. So then they say what you're going through in America is what we had. You're getting in America what we had. So that's how they. That's
where hate speech, all that comes out of the communists.
Yeah. And communism, socialism is the same thing. So you don't get lost in all the weeds of is it this one or that one. It's the same technocratic thing. Might have a different flavor, might have a different emphasis, but it's all the same stuff as what's in this book. This book is about collectivism, socialism.
So how'd you discover Orthodox Christianity?
Well, I was a Roman Catholic for many, many years in my 20s, and there was a lot of contradictions in the Vatican teaching that eventually I read. You read the Vatican documents, Vatican I and Vatican II, you compare the two. The popes before Vatican II were saying all kinds of traditional stuff, like you got to have, Christian leaders, you got to have Christian principles in government, and then that changes after Vatican II, becomes heavily liberalized. Majority of the Roman Catholic priests now, especially in the West, are openly gay. Many of them are, promoting all kinds of stuff that the Vatican has pretty much conceded to. I mean, they just had a gay procession in the Vatican about a month ago. So, all of the churches, as you pointed out, many of them, they're co-opted. So I was interested in a church that was ancient, that was traditional, and wasn't at least universally co-opted. So unlike the papacy, where the church is kind of built on one dude, Orthodoxy is decentralized. And I think a lot of people they don't understand that. They think, well, aren't there bad patriarchs? Aren't there bad bishops? Yeah, that's everywhere. But it's a decentralized firewall system, so you can't destroy the whole thing by capturing one dude. So anyway, I got into that about 10 years ago, and I haven't regretted it or looked back.
Now, getting into this. Global elite text. Let's talk about this. This is our second little lecture. We'll get going now.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you could start with is...
You want this? I'll give you the thing you go through.
One thing that is relevant, this is not one of the texts, but I did bring a biography of the Rothschild. You said you
started your lecture last week that was only like 45 minutes long with the Israel thing, and because I see it as people only learning about globalism and the New World Order through Israel or Jews. We're not taking away from like wanting to know about that, but it also becomes a limiting issue.
It is, because it's bigger than that, right? Changing images of man is the bigger picture, saying we don't really care about Old Testament Judaism. We don't really care about Israel. I mean, again, it's a lot of theosophy. And
well, look at how the left is totally on board against Israel. And I'm not saying Israel doesn't deserve some of it. I'm saying this is a sick coalition. There's something bigger here.
Yeah, well, again, the text, like theosophy, which influenced the Third Reich, which influenced most of the socialists out there in the world today. Theosophy is opposed to anything to do with Yahweh, anything to do with the Bible, anything to do with the Old Testament. So when we come to the founding of the nation state of Israel, it is true that Edmund Rothschild was an operative who had a code name, and his code name was to be a secret benefactor.
Well, this wasn't written by Adolf Hitler or something. This is written by the Rothschilds. This is their authorized biography.
The authorized biography is by, I think it was Morton, was the guy's name?
Yeah.
Yeah, Frederick Morton, a 1962 text. It's just a mainline biography. It's not a conspiracy text. But it's talking about how Baron Edmund de Rothschild had a plan to purchase a lot of tracts of land decades before there was a political Zionist movement. So this was in the late 1800s. Moses Hess is another one of these characters who wrote a book. He's the founder of utopian socialism, and he wrote a book called Roman Jerusalem. And it's all about the New World Order, but it's just kind of like, we want a New World Order with this kind of Zionist flavor. These guys are saying, well, we want a New World Order with kind of a Theosophy, New Age flavor. It's the same stuff.
And China wants one, but they want them to run
exactly. They have a 100-year plan.
So it's like the ring. Everybody wants the ring, but it's still the same ring.
Yeah, but again, like it's a little more complex than just saying, oh, it's all the Jews, because you can't have all the Jews. They didn't run the papacy when the papacy decided to print the Talmud. The Talmud was printed by Leo X in the time of Martin Luther. That's the Pope who was the patron of that. Usury used to be illegal until the papacy decided that usury is not illegal anymore. It's not a mortal sin anymore. There's a famous Roman Catholic named Michael Hoffman who wrote a book called Usury, the Sin That Was Not, that was and now is not. So if you believe that Jews run everything, it could only have happened if the papacy conceded all that power in the West and allowed and committed the support of Judaism to do these things. Furthermore, there wouldn't be a nation state of Israel if there wasn't World War II, the Havara Agreement, and if Hitler wasn't promoting remigration of Jews. And so there's books written about the collaboration between Nazis and Zionists. This is a historic fact. But that's all too complex. Everybody just wants it to be all black and white. So are you going to choose Theosophy or are you going to choose Judaism? Well, what if I don't want either one of those? What if it's a false dialectic? What if they're both wrong? What if the Middle East should be a Christian place? It was at one time. There was a Christian kingdom. It was part of Byzantium.
Yeah, why aren't we talking about expanding instead of just being on the defense?
Yeah, so Edmund de Rothschild, the reason I'm bringing it up is that this is the history of it. He bought tracts of land from a sultan. So now, wait a minute. Is it the sultan's fault too? Right? I mean, the sultan's the one selling the land to the Rothschilds. So if a Turkish sultan sells the land, then he's also part of the problem. They wanted to buy the Western Wall and so forth, but they weren't successful at that time. So this is before political Zionism. They had a long-term plan. Moses Hess in his book talks about how in the 1860s, the Rothschilds were already planning and promoting the idea of the building of the temple. And this is because they believed, I'm talking about Hess, Herzl, Weizmann, they believed that the nation state of Israel would be a new world order for the Jews. It would be the place that would control the world from their perspective and save the world, because they didn't believe in an actual Messiah. These were more atheistic socialist Jews that believed that the race of Jews and that Judaism itself could be a kind of beacon to the nations to promote socialism and communism. And I'm not for that. I'm saying that was their attitude. And in 1862, Moses Hess wrote a book and said, yeah, we will, because of the funding and the support of the Rothschilds, who have devoted their energy and capital to the rebuilding of the holy city and the temple. So this was planned a long time ago in a political way. Now, to get into more relevant, more recent texts in the sense of like the last century, there's a great text here called Tragedy and Hope. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because if you go to my channel, I have a lecture through the entirety of the book. It's 8 lectures. It's been there for 10 years. This is Bill Clinton's mentor. He's a Georgetown professor. He wrote texts from the CFR archives. That's the Council on Foreign Relations that was founded in the 1920s by the Rockefellers. It's to mirror the Royal Institute for International Affairs, Chatham House, et cetera, model of roundtable groups that would be steering committees to run the world order. They're essentially Fabian socialists, but you'll notice if you understand the Fabian socialist model and that Lord Rothschild was promoting Fabian socialism and theosophy through Lord Milner, through this model, that's not different than this. It's the same socialist model. It's just different flavors. Is it going to be more of a British imperial flavor, more of a Zionist flavor, more of a Chinese flavor? Everybody has a sort of global order model. So there's competing global order models. But Tragedy and Hope mentions that the banking elite in the West and an industrial elite as well essentially planned the 2 world wars. First of all, World War I was about creating the League of Nations. So as you know, a lot of these texts talk about creating forms of global governance. Well, the League of Nations was the first attempt at that, and it wasn't very successful because there was a lot of U.S. backlash. A lot of senators, congressmen in the U.S. opposed the idea of the League of Nations. The papacy, by the way, under Benedict XV, supported the League of Nations. That's in J.N.D. Kelly's Oxford History of the Popes. But the banking elite decided that, okay, well, if this isn't going to work with this World War I scenario, we need another giant global conflict. And Michael Hoffman has a book that's also good on Hitler as a destroyer of Europe, destroyer of millions of European and eventually, when he goes against the Russians, millions of Russians died. So I don't see Hitler as this hero figure or the savior figure. He believed in Malthusian depopulation views. He believed in, many of his elite believed in satanic stuff like Himmler.
Well, I mean, Milner didn't particularly, they envisioned a Hitler character after World War I to build it up to launch another war later.
Yeah, that's what Quigley's basically saying about World War II. And in the book, there's a whole chapter called the Dual Appeasement Plan, where the British elites were meeting with Hitler regularly through Ribbentrop. They had a conduit there. They were bringing Ribbentrop into these secret Astor Cliveden Set meetings, and they were saying, we're not going to oppose you when you go into Czechoslovakia, when you go into Poland. So they were telling Hitler one thing, but they were telling the public another thing. So,
and that's Netherland Chamberlain, and that's why later, once the war fully starts, the Weissfuhrer, Rudolf Hess, flies, parachutes out of the palace with the secret peace treaty.
Because they had duped him. Yeah, they thought we've got people on your side. It was, like a QAnon type of thing.
Well, they were going to put Edward VIII on the throne of the EU.
Who was a Nazi, right?
Yep. That's the King of England, by the way.
Yeah. And all of that ended up being a double cross. So I think they used...
And again, British intelligence even used the king to double cross him.
Yeah, they double crossed Hitler, telling him that they would support him. And the Bank of England, as we'll see in a second here, that's who funded...
That'd be a triple cross, too, because they said we're secretly going to double cross, then they triple crossed.
Yeah. Well, look at this. It says... This is Quigley saying, as he's reading the CFR archives, he says... He's talking about the right-wing John Birch Society view. He says that they don't really have it all right. They think it's a lot of communists and people in Moscow and stuff like that. It's not really communists in Moscow. He says this myth, like all fables, does have some truth to it. There does exist and has existed for many generations an international Anglophile network, and that doesn't mean white people. It's talking about this elite network of
British
royalty as well as the Rothschilds too.
The British nobility.
Yes. They are very radical, and it says that the right believes that it's communist. In fact, this network we identify as the roundtable groups. It has no aversion to cooperating with communists, and this is why people get confused, or with any other groups, and that includes fascists or monarchists. It doesn't matter. They could collaborate with whoever. It frequently does so. I know of the operations of this network because I have studied it for 20 years, and I was permitted for 2 years in the 60s to examine its papers and its secret records. That's why that book is unique. Now, every time I quote this, I get these idiots who say, well, are you a fan of Carol Quigley? Why are you promoting Carol Quigley? I'm not promoting him. I'm citing his book because I disagree with him. I mean, you can read people that you disagree with.
This is Bill Clinton's mentor, top political scientist, who says, I believe the world needs to know this. He writes a 1,300-page book or whatever it is, explaining that we should all adopt this.
Yeah, he says, I have no aversion to their plans. That's Quigley quote. He says, he's not a critic of it. He's a promoter of it. He thinks this is the best hope for the world. Roundtable groups have already been mentioned in this book several times in connection with the British Commonwealth. That was Lord Curtis's plan for global government. He says it's all the same plan. In America, this is the Eastern Seaboard Establishment, he says, and they're not totally secret. They're semi-secret. The roundtable groups were semi-secret discussion forums, lobbying groups organized by Lord Curtis, Philip Kerr, and he goes on to talk about Lord Milner, Lord Stead, all these different and
Winston Churchill, who was half American in his three-part series, History of the English-Speaking Peoples, it promotes all this too. Mm-hmm. Have you read the last book in there? It basically promotes all this.
I've not seen that, no. So let's look at some of the elite families that he lists. This is page 52 early on in the text. We're going to go back a little bit. This is Quigley and Hitler goaded to attack. Again, there's a whole chapter called Dual Appeasement, Dual Strategy that covers the whole double cross of Hitler stuff. But on page 52, it says this influence and this prestige throughout universities, etc. The names of these banking families are those familiar to all of us and should be more so. The Barings, the Lazards, the Erlanger, the Warburgs, the Schroders, the Seligman, the Spires, Mirabeau, that's the French, Mallet, Food, Rothschild, Morgan. So it's not just one group of people. Some of those bankers are Catholic. Some of them are Jewish. Some of them are Protestant.
And Time Magazine had him as a great guy, Man of the Year.
Yeah, they were promoting him in America because they were part of the same network and they wanted the war. That's what I'm trying to say is like, you don't get a giant world war without decades of planning. People think that wars just happen. Oh, it's just war. No, wars happen because they're planned years ahead of time.
And the globalist intelligence agencies had infiltrated all the Nazis. And they had their Enigma machines very early. It was all, they didn't control Hitler, but they had him set up.
Yeah, it was a pawn. He was a dupe. Yeah.
Yeah, Hitler was a loser. Hitler was a dupe. Not some, champion. We'll be right back. So, Jay, continuing through these key documents of the New World Order, books published by their top people admitting it all. Again, for me, it's so frustrating to know all this and then to be telling people about this. And then instead, either people say, oh, well, you know about it because you're one of them, or they just ignore the fact that we predicted it. It's like people say, how did you know we'd be 6 feet apart 15 years before? And, how did you know that there'd be lockdowns? They said it in all these UN and Rockefeller documents like lockstep. It's like my frustration is it's right here. It's like people keep asking how we know all this, and they'll take little clips out where I don't describe why. They just show where I predict it, and then everybody freaks out about it. It's that weird esoteric thing. Like if you tell them how you know, nobody cares. But if they don't say how you knew, everybody freaks out. It's weird. It's like a treasure hunt. It's Gnostic. It's esoteric.
Maybe you need if you had like your own QAnon or something, it would have been more like they'd be more interested in decoding it. But it's too easy if it's out there in the open, right? So, I mean, the guy that wrote Changing Images of Man, this Willis Harman, one of the writers, he wrote another book that you mentioned when you were talking to me. It's called Millennium, right around the same time, and there's a chapter on the future of work, and he talks about essential and non-essential workers. So they had that planned all the way back in the early 80s too, that there would be people in the future that would be deemed non-essential.
And it's all social justice warriors, non-essential workers, the ending the family. Well, when we've got Paul Ehrlich in the late 70s and 80s all over TV saying all the images of men and father figures will now be weak. We got to destroy the father for depopulation. Back then they were even, there was a time in the 60s and 70s before there was a backlash thing. It kind of admitted it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like State Department Memorandum 7277, now they're going to take our guns, the police guns, and have a UN force. So they're kind of open for a while, then they pull back. Was that because of like Barry Goldwater or Reagan or the Church Committee, or what was it?
Could be. I mean, there's Reese Committee also earlier than that, investigating all the same stuff, the foundation.
So what are they going to do now that there's such an awakening? Before you get back to the documents.
It has to be some kind of
crisis. Big
crisis. Yeah, I mean, every global elite text talks about we're in a crisis, we're in a crisis. The crisis is overpopulation, nuclear technology, people have guns, there's too much business in progress. Like all of that is the crisis. So usually what happens is future shock or shocks to the system where they bring in some catalyzing event or some high profile event or some idea that they inculcate that's intended to create so much chaos or so much.
And the UN said for decades, we'll use a virus as the main thing.
They did, and then they rolled that out. So, I mean, we could get economic collapse because I don't think we can fix, the Federal Reserve without just getting some kind of like hard currency.
Bottom line, the old system's coming to an end. They need a crisis to bring in their new. So let me ask this real quick.
Yep.
Peter Thiel, I haven't gone and seen his Antichrist lecture. I've tried to get tickets. It's sold out. But I've read what he says about it. He's like, there'll be these crises and disorder, and the Antichrist will promise order. And then he's all about stagnancy in technology. He says, be laissez-faire and grow. What do you make of what he's saying and doing?
So, I mean, giving him the benefit of the doubt, he seems to be interested in Christianity, moving in the direction of Christianity, giving a more negative appraisal. He's influenced by technocratic ideas that, with Palantir and things like that. I read his book, 0 to 1, and there's a whole chapter where he talks about Palantir basically being something given to the NSA to track and trace. It has a location in Israel. So I think there's a lot of danger there. Whether he's really moving in the direction of Christianity is up to, I want to hope for the best, but
always the worst one it came from. His parents were like super Protestant, hyper.
Yeah, right. Well, the lecture seems to be kind of taking the ideas of Christianity, and I've only seen clips, so if I haven't seen the whole thing, but when he was talking to that journalist, when they were interviewing him about Antichrist, and he was saying partial truths.
Thessalonians?
Well, he was saying that Antichrist is going to be collectivist, and so you need to promote classical liberal ideas. And I mean, in a basic sense, that's kind of true. But again, the danger is that a lot of technocrats, people like that, they want to appropriate some of the Christian ideas and turn them into transhumanist ideas. So I think that I'd like to see Peter Thiel move away from transhumanism, which he seems to be a proponent of, if he wants to get into Christianity. So, but I don't know his motives personally.
Me neither, but we should certainly have a larger debate about what is the Antichrist.
I think there's going to be a single human figure that will be the final Antichrist. I mean, that's pretty much.
But there are many Antichrists.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Orthodox Church believes Hitler was an Antichrist, just like Napoleon was an Antichrist. He was motivated to move and to fight against Russia because Russia was one of the bastions of Christianity at that time, and that's where we get the Ukraine in its neo-Nazi form today as part of that attempt to carve away.
Well, Rob Reiner got asked last year when he put himself in a mental institution. He said, "Why do you hate Russia so much?" He goes, "Well, they're Christian now. They loved it when it was run by the left."
Well, they don't want any Christian nation state. I mean, Trajan Hope says that in the first 100 pages that that's whether it's Catholic nation state, Austro-Hungarian Empire, or whether it's Russia being Orthodox Christian, that has to all be destroyed to bring in the New World Order. I mean,
and that's paradoxical. The average Catholic I know is super engaged against evil, really smart, nice, good people. Then you actually read Catholic elite doctrine out of the papacy. It's literal New World Order Satanism. And then I know Catholics are freaked out by that, like Mel Gibson and people, and try to keep the classical thing going. You used to be a Catholic, went into Orthodox. It's you see it as older and pure, but how do you deal with that when church leadership's bad, but then the people in the church are good? So it's very paradoxical.
There's a symbiotic relationship, of a kind of abuse relationship that goes on where you keep defending the system that you think is the answer, and then you realize the people that are running it are actually the ones that are your enemy and the ones that hate you. So if you're, say, a Roman Catholic and you're devoted to that, you're trying to get people into Catholicism, and you think that the enemy is outside and it's people like me or somebody else arguing or debating with you. But then you realize at the end of the day, well, why does the guy that I'm defending, the grand poobah of this system, he keeps doing the things against me? So there's a Stockholm syndrome abuse relationship that goes on there in that system.
Yeah, why do you think in the last years of Biden, obsessive compulsive attacks on traditional Catholics, and then never a word from the papacy about that?
Well, they hate the actual Catholics. That's the thing. Is like just like the same in the Orthodox Church, we have the ecumenical patriarchate who is as bad as the Pope. And part of this whole world religion situation, I mean, I think they actually hate the people that they quote serve. So they view them in a very elitist way. And it's kind of sad because you're not going to get help from an organization that's already adopted Marxism, socialism. If you read, there's a Vatican II document about politics post-Vatican II. It's called Gaudium et Spes. It's one of the official documents of the papacy, and it teaches Marxism and socialism. It teaches chain migration, open borders. It teaches demilitarizing, getting rid of nation states, getting rid of Christian states, and a kind of global economy that's socialist and Marxist.
Remember the last Pope had a quote where he said, I don't want to hear about Christian roots of Europe. And we need to accept more migrants, but they don't take any in Vatican City.
Well, there's a giant wall around the Vatican. That was the Leonine Wall. That was
biggest I've ever seen.
Yeah, I've been to it. I've seen it.
At some points, it's like 200 feet tall.
It's a city-state. Like
on average, it's about 80 feet, but some of them are like 200 feet. Like it's like
it's huge. And it has. I mean, if you go to the Vatican Museum, I mean, it's just this vast trove of just you couldn't even put a price tag on how much is in the Vatican Museum. It's massive. That's what's behind the wall if you go there. So yeah, I think that people need to realize that the Vatican, if a lot of the Roman Catholics are, they talk about Jews all the time, but I mean the papacy teaches that Judaism is a path to God. But Nostra Aetate says this. So if you want to be mad at this idea of Judaism, well then you should be mad at the Vatican, because the Vatican basically supports all the same rabbinic ideas. So I don't know why there's an inconsistency.
Well, how does the Pope not take one illegal alien, but he's got a 150 foot or whatever that is wall, and then it's just ridiculous.
Well, you shouldn't have guns. He talks about disarmament, but he has armed Secret Service.
The Swiss Guard.
Not just them, actual Secret Service.
Yeah.
That have guns. Like he's got like a team. If you get to pull up the Pope with his.
No, I know. You're not just a ceremonial Swiss Guard. They've got the other.
No, there's a name for the papal Secret Service. Something that starts with a V. I can't remember the name of the word.
Did you even know up in Switzerland, most people don't know this, they actually have a military up there, the Vatican has.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's a geopolitical situation, and the papacy has been tied into this kind of stuff for a long time. It's unfortunate. I don't hate Roman Catholics. Got a lot of Catholic friends, Tim Gordon, people like that. But I just don't think that if we're talking about solutions, an entity that has already adopted as its dogma and Gaudium et Spes, Marxism, socialism, is not going to be a thing that's going to provide healing. And that's why Roman Catholics are always talking about politics. But the politics of the Vatican is already garbage. The Pope just said, again, have open borders. I just put it on my Twitter. He just said,
oh, I know. I know a lot of Catholics who are great people. They're like, oh, this new Pope will be different. He is attacking Trump, everything.
He's worse than Francis because he's explicitly allowing for gay processions. He approved that with James Martin, the famous gay Jesuit. He's saying more than Francis, you need to have open borders, you need to have open borders, you need to have open borders. He just did a giant ecumenist world religious ceremony the other day too. So no, you're not going to get healing and anything fixed with tools of the power structure that we're talking about today.
Wow, other documents you haven't got to yet.
Yeah, so going back to Tiny Mustache Man, to Hitler himself, Quigley has this amazing discussion here. I think it's 1059, 1049. I can't see it, but he says that the same bank that Alan Dulles was a brother of Secretary of State Dulles was a former director of Schroeder Bank in New York, an associate of Frank Tiark's, and a partner in the Schroeder Bank of London in 1902, director of the Bank of England, as well as Lazard Brothers Bank and the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. It will be noted that Schroeder Bank in Cologne is who helped arrange Hitler's accession to power in 1933. So you'll notice that nobody talks about the fact that it's not just industrialists in the West, IG Farben and that kind of stuff, that supported the rise of Hitler to have a world war, to have a big European world war. It was also the Bank of England. It was also, again, the British elite said, you can have $3 billion of Czech gold when you go and take the Czechoslovakian loot. We will not oppose you. Take it, have it. Also, Quigley says the Bank of France continued to give loans and to support to Hitler throughout this time period early on in his rise to power when he was beginning his...
And that's just like them putting Saddam Hussein in 79 and having him attack Iran in the Iran-Iraq war and then setting him up and removing him. It's the same story over and over again. We're not saying Saddam or Hitler are good. The point is they're being set up.
Exactly. Now, the people talk about the Kalergi Plan, and it comes up in Quigley. So there is something to this. I've read Kalergi's book, Practical Idealism, that he wrote in 1925.
People don't know that's the Japanese/European royal that wanted to replace migration.
Yes, Count Coudenhove Kalergi, and he wrote a book called Practical Idealism. You can buy it right now. It's not very long. They presented him and I think Lord Lionel Curtis's plans to the Royal Society in the 1930s, I think, and they both agreed that we'll use a combination of the Curtis Plan, the Commonwealth of God, which was a socialist global government plan, and we'll use Kalergi's plan to destroy the indigenous existing people groups of Europe. So they explicitly, that's in Anglo-American establishment where Quigley admits.
If you bring in a ton of Muslims and North Africans, Europeans will really stop fighting with each other over their German and French. Now they'll really be worried about this.
Well, but General Wesley Clark said the same thing, that it's time to destroy the existing people group and just have a big homogenous blob. So that's explicitly what the Kalergi Plan is. He says in the book, we'll do that. And then in the 1981 text from Quigley, he says that this plan was originally Cecil Rhodes, and if you read the whole book, he says it was Rhodes with Rothschild money, coming up with the idea for a society of the elect, and it would be patterned on the Jesuits, not the Jesuits that run it. It's just structured and patterned on.
And Hitler fashioned the SS after the Jesuits.
Yep. So they take those patterns of how it's organized. It doesn't mean that the Jesuits run everything, but the secret society would be the Society of the Elect. It would have an outer circle known as the Association of Helpers, with an inner society of the elect. The real power would be exercised by the leader and a junta of 3. This is a long time ago. This is like back in 1900 when they were setting this up. This is not the way things run now, but this was this original plan of Rothschild and Rhodes to create a Fabian socialist world government. There's a whole book on it, really good, called Fabian Socialist Conspiracy by Johann Rothschild.
But here's a microcosm. We knew this even before they stole the election in 2020. Roger Stone predicted it. But now we know from the whistleblower, the White House Chief of Staff, that it was a committee of 5 that ran the auto pin, and Biden had, it was Hillary, Biden, and then 3 other people from different factions. And then that Biden's wife was the 5th, and then she would be there as like the tiebreaker. And it was a committee. And that's how they want the Vatican now, is why they're getting issues to popes now stepping down, but and having 2 popes at once. It's all part of that.
Yeah, like committees, steering committees. He says on the next page here that during this period, this was the dream of Cecil Rhodes. There's also a last will and testament of Cecil Rhodes, which again, it's all Rothschild money that's behind that. This roundtable group has been called by various names, depending on the phase in which it was examined. Has been called the Crowd by the Times. Has been called Chatham House, All Souls, Cliveden Set. It's the same group. Or Milner's Kindergarten, the roundtable group, and the various associations of helpers. This is all the people at Oxford, Cambridge. That's the professors who are aiding as the outer circle of the inner circle, which is the people that we're talking about. So there's a small group of inner society people. And when George Orwell wrote his book, 1984, there's the inner party and the outer party. The outer party are the dupes, the people that believe they're really working to create some help.
That's how any of these intelligence agencies or cults work.
Yeah, exactly. Concentric circles, basically, plans within plans. The idea of, out of the Dune series, Frank Herbert.
Wheels within wheels.
Exactly. The Society of the Elect continue to exist and recruit new members. Since 1920, this group has been dominated by the assistant Viscount Astor, misnamed Cliveden Set, etc., Milner Group. So by the time of Milner and by the time of later British government's Labour Party, it becomes explicitly aligned with this Fabian socialist, or what's in the UK, it's Labour Party. So Keir Starmer is this. So he's a perfect representation of this. Next page, this is a key admission early on in the book. This organization has been able to conceal its existence quite successfully. Many of its influential members are satisfied to possess the reality rather than the appearance of power, and unknown to the students of British history. This is more surprising when we learn that the chief methods of this group work through propaganda. This group plotted the Jameson raid. It caused the Boer War. It controls the Rhodes Trust. It created the South African Union. It established South Africa. It founded the British Imperial periodical Roundtable. It is a mouthpiece of this group. It is run out of All Souls, Balliol, New College, Oxford. It has controlled the Times.
And now Trump's got a trust that's going to run Gaza.
The same people behind this were the ones that were putting out and
that's why Tony Blair, the British originally handed over, then they allow their own troops to be bombed for Jews to take over. It's just the same story again.
They do the same thing over and over and over. And when Trump was being attacked with P-Gate and all that, it was the same network that was doing that in the UK. So you have to understand that it's the shared relationship.
Did you see Navarro go to the CFR last week and just chew out the British elite?
No.
And he said, "You're British elites. I know you're British intelligence. We're going to shut you down." He actually told them this to their faces.
Lord,
you can't make this up.
Right. Lloyd George war administration of 1917 was dominated by these people. They dominated the Peace Conference of 1919. So this is talking about back at the time of the League of Nations, who was running it. And this is where they founded the Royal Institute of International Affairs in 1919. So that is the same group, same networks. And we can move on to another propagandist from their school, H.G. Wells in 1940, when he wrote The New World Order. So that helps you, right? The book is very easily titled New World Order. He says, to bring this in, this world socialist democracy, he was an explicit socialist. He says, there will need to be many great delays and disappointments before this beneficent world system. Countless people, from the Maharajas to the millionaires, from the Puka Sahibs to the pretty ladies, they will hate the New World Order and be rendered unhappy by frustrations of their passions and ambitions through this advent, and they will die protesting against it, but it's necessary. So millions of people are going to die opposing their New World Order right there. And as you said, he wrote Shape of Things to Come in 1933. That predicted World War II and the future technocratic world order. And again, all these books go into way more detail. This is just selection.
And the key is they literally built it. They've done it. But now, how much of their plan's been frustrated if you put a number on it? I mean, how would you describe it the way it's going?
Well, it's very difficult to get everybody to hate their own nature and hate their biology. You can do it, but it's difficult. Tavistock was frustrated, that whole...
And if people know you're doing it, they can rebel.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, Tavistock is a great example where they had to basically give up pushing all the trans stuff. But I mean, they already have damaged 100,000 kids in America.
And now they're moving on to euthanasia.
Yeah. So I think, no, as long as we keep, this awakening going, and as people turn to things like Christianity, it's not going to work. In Between Two Ages, 1970, Brzezinski, I just have an example, one wild page where he says that the technocratic era will utilize weather modification, genetic modification, et cetera, to mutate man. He says that the human being is synthetic, and biological and chemical tampering with what has now been considered immutable as the immutable essence of man can now be plastic.
Well, that's genetic babies, the shots, all of it.
Human conduct, same argue, can be predetermined and subjected to deliberate control. Man is increasingly acquiring the capability to determine the sex of his children, to affect through the drugs the extent of their intelligence, and to modify and control their personalities. And so it goes on to talk about computer technology, satellites, RFID. This was back in 1970, right? So he's basically saying man is a genetic test tube product that aligns with what Bertrand Russell wrote in 1952, Impact of Science on Society. He says that biological warfare is more effective for mass depopulation than war. And this will be inevitable as we move towards global governance. That's what pages 102, 103 and 104. I do not pretend that birth control is the only way in which population can be kept from increasing. There are many other ways, including war. However, more effective is a mass bacteriological Black Death. So here's a person openly advocating for mass genocide.
And he's hailed as a liberal.
No, he's not a liberal. That's the joke, right? He was at one time a Fabian socialist and then supposedly left their society. But in 1984, when Orwell wrote that, he talked about people who, like O'Brien, pretended to be kind of on his side, and but then you find out that it's controlled opposition. Right?
Absolutely. We're out of time. Thanks for being here. You're going to be on in the second hour with Harrison Smith today, 4 p.m. Central. It's great to have you here in the twilight of this office, but Infowars lives forever. A closing comment, J. Dyer.
No, I just want to say that, I think, again, Orthodox Christianity is the answer. A lot of young guys are turning to that. So go check out, your local Russian Orthodox church, something like that. You can follow me on jaysanalysis.com. You can follow me on Twitter, on YouTube, and I got Esther Hollywood 3 is about to come out.
All right.